Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of Microsoft Flight Simulator, and today is my A320 Shakedown. Everything that I use for my A320 flights I'm going to break down today, as well as some new features as you saw in the title description, and some really exciting news. Basically just going to walk you guys through everything that I have. I get a lot of questions on all of my A320 videos, whether it be, where I get my cockpit livery from, why does your cockpit look different than mine, to the Simbrief integration, people are still asking how to set that up, etc., to just various general questions about the A320 and the mods that I use. So I'm going to break down all the mods that I use specifically with the A320, and then, show off some new features. Well, tell you about some new features. I can't show them off yet, but I'm going to tell you about some things. So, let's get started. If you are interested in learning how to fly the A320, consider checking out my Overkill's A320 guide. This guide is available on either my Patreon site or via PayPal donation. PayPal donation, $10 or more. Just be sure to specify which guide you're looking for, as I have more than one. Patreon site, tier 2 or above, again, $10 a month, but that gives you access to all the guides that I currently have available, and then all that are coming in the future. My A320 guide walks you through how to install the A320X mod by fly-by-wire. For those who don't know, the A320X mod takes the default A320 Microsoft Flight Simulator and brings its functionality and features up to what I would consider study level simulation, and it's all completely free. So be sure to check that out. This guide walks you through everything from creating your flight plan into Simbrief, reading your flight plan in Simbrief, entering your flight plan in Microsoft Flight Simulator if that's how you choose to do so in the main menu or in the main map, full cockpit tours, walking through every button, switch, etc., letting you guys know where all the different panels and what the different options are, different displays on the screen and icons and things that you may experience while in flight and what they mean and how to read them and interpolate the information being displayed, the preliminary checklist before starting up the aircraft, taxi, takeoff, navigation, your altitude management, features of the MCDU that aren't related specifically to the A320 but are available because of fly-by-wire and their efforts, how to break down a flight route, understanding what you're looking at so you can take this information, use it in future flights, rather than just copying and pasting information that you're seeing on a screen or on a document, how to acquire some more information that's provided in the A320, specifically the A320X. The different gauges, again, understanding what you're looking at versus just, powering up and going, getting some of that background information to solidify your flight, looking at approach plates, departure plates, SIDS, stars, all those things that we have to consider when doing an IFR flight, managing your descent, when to start your descent, as well as the approach and giving you goals of where you want to be at specific points, and even the missed approach. For shutdown, we go through the startup or the cold and dark and the turnaround status. So again, if you guys are interested in a guide like this and interested in learning how to fly the A320, consider donating or subscribing to Patreon to acquire your guide. Alright, so the first one that comes up a lot is the cockpit livery. People are always asking, how do you get your cockpit to look like that? I want that dark color, blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to show you guys where I find it from. So all you need to do is go to flightsim.to, come up to the top and just search cockpit livery. And all these come up. There's the one that I'm using right now that you just saw on the screen. There's sort of the opposing color to it. There's quite a few in here that are being used. And these are a lot of fun to mess around with. There's one here for the TBM. Actually, I think I'm using this one for the TBM if I remember correctly. I might be using a different one. I could be mistaken. We got one up here for the CJ4. And these are a lot of fun to use. So let me show you what you do with them. So all you're going to do is download them and extract them like any other mod. But then what you need to make sure that happens is, whether you use a mod manager or anything like that, it doesn't really matter as far as how you put them in. But you're going to go to your community folder, and you can see here's my A320X mod. Okay, this is the mod by fly-by-wire. All right, and down below, way down the bottom, here is my cockpit livery. Okay, you need to make sure you keep the Z's in front of it or anything to make sure that it loads all the way down at the bottom. And the reason being is that for example, the A320X has its own cockpit textures in it. The cockpit textures were reworked. And if for any reason the livery is loaded out of order, it will actually lay on top of the cockpit liveries and can mess up some of the functionality. Some of the buttons and switches may not work, etc. It can cause some buggy behavior. But all you're doing is dropping that folder. This is what it looks like. Sim objects and the rest of the details to it. So that's it. You just relaunch the simulator and you should have your new livery. And they're easy to swap out, especially if you're using a mod manager or something like that. So again, that's a question that comes up a lot, so I want to share with you guys how I do that. The next one that still tends to pop up quite a bit is the Simbrief integration. People don't understand how I'm getting the flight plan from Simbrief directly into the MCDU. Now, again, in order to do this, you must be using the A320X mod by Fly-by-Wire. There'll be a link down in the description below, and I use their installer. You can download the installer, and it looks like this, and you can pick which version you want, stable, development, or the custom experimental. All right. Really handy tool, very nice. You just point it to your community directory and off it goes from there. Now to set up the integration, this is the main menu of the MCDU when it first starts up. So we're just going to go into options. Let's go ahead and clear that. And we're going to go to AOC, Airline Operational Control, and we're looking right here for Simbrief. You can see in Simbrief I've typed out my username, Overkill Productions. And if you have any doubts about what your Simbrief username is, as far as whether it's a logon name or a user identifier, you're looking for this right here. Whatever it says right here, that's what you need to type here. Now, something to think about with this is if you have a friend or somebody, or let's say you want to use my last flight plan, because it stores the last used flight plan. Like, for example, I flew this a few days ago. You can go to view last flight plan, and here was my flight. I did a video on it from Tucson to Denver. So if you guys ever wanted to repeat a flight that someone else has done, as long as you type their username in here, that's the flight plan you're going to load, as long as they haven't made any new flight plans since then. And so that's how that's completed. Now, the thing to remember with this, okay, so once you've put your username in here and you've confirmed it's correct, there's a couple different locations at which you can force the integration, okay? So coming back to the main menu, we're out of the options screen. We can go to ATSU, go to AOC, and we can do it from a couple different locations. We can do it from the initial page here. We can do initial data request, and boom, there it is. Or you can type the initialization page here. Oh, looks like I have to do it again anyway. Never mind, put a foot in my mouth. So that will put all the data in there for the weights and balances and everything, but you can come here and do the initialization request. This is the way I normally do it. And if you ever get this not in database, just hit it again. And boom, there it is. And now we got to wait for the flight plan typically, so you can see I've only got the first waypoint in there. So let's give it a second. And you can see uplink in progress. And so let's go to performance and then back to flight plan. Oh, we're still waiting. Sometimes you have to wait. Gotta be patient. There you go. So AOC active flight plan uplink. Now if I go to the flight plan, there it is. Now the thing to remember about the flight plan integration is that it does not put in your SIDs and stars, because technically, I mean, well, in a real world experience, those are actually authorized by ATC. You can hope for whatever SID or star that you want, you know, your departure or your arrival, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get it. So this is actually simulating real world activity. So for example, in this particular flight plan, I'm actually going direct to Sierra Sarah Oscar. So all I need to do in here is I would set my departure as runway 11 left, okay? But again, this is where SIDs and stars come into play, or the SID comes into play. I don't have one. I'm flying direct, so I'm going to hit insert. But if I'm talking about my star, my arrival into Denver, we're going to go to arrivals. And here, I would still need to put in, so for example, this flight was 17 left, using the T-bar 2. Coming in on the, oh, it was the Kale. And using the Gindola transition. And so whenever we change the transition, it makes you walk back through some of this again. So we can simply just move forward again. 17 left. On the T-bar 2. Coming in from Kale. And then you can see it's already there. This is what you want to watch for. When you get to this screen, don't hit the button again. Watch this right here, and then just hit insert. Okay, and now our flight plan is complete. Okay, so that, again, that's another question that's come up pretty frequently is, you know, how do I do the Simbrief integration? I know I've posted that in previous videos. Also, again, as you guys saw at the beginning of the video, my A320 guide walks through all of this and how to configure the MCDU, all the different various options, your ATIS source, your weather, your MEDAR source, weights and balances, you name it. Walks through everything as far as the new features. The new release will walk through the printer functionality as well. And then that brings us to our next thing, which is the exciting one I want to tell you guys, which is the EFB. So the EFB, the electronic flight bag, will soon be coming to the A320nx. It is already in the hands of the testers from Fly-by-Wire, so you can actually find some video footage on it. I included a link in the description below to the one that I watched earlier, and it's got some really awesome functionality coming to this and coming soon. Like I said, it's already in the hands of the testers, which means from testers, I think it'll go to experimental, which we have access to, from experimental development to release. All right, now some of the features that I've seen is we're going to see Simbrief integration. Flight plan will be displayed on the EFB. We'll have access to what looks like payload and fuel load, be able to edit those parameters within inside the EFB. There's a teaser button there for pushback assistance, whether it be through Pushback Helper or some other pushback service. I'm not sure what they're going to end up with. From what I could tell, it looked like Pushback Helper, but again, no idea yet. That's not a fact. As well as a few other screens that were unpopulated at the moment, such as performance and flight and things like that. So it looks like they're going to have a lot of functionality in the EFB, which I'm really looking forward to. It seems like they're really jumping on with sort of what we saw with the AviTab in the 737 for X-Plane by Zibo. And then I know the AviTab was useful in other applications, but specifically speaking to the airliner. So really awesome feature coming. I'm really excited to get my hands on it. I can't wait till it's available. And again, once it goes into a development version, I'll be adding it to the guide as well. But I wanted you guys to know that was coming. If you guys are unfamiliar with the A320nx mod, please check out the links in the description below, because you're going to find it so much better if you enjoy flying the A320. The default A320 is modified by this A320nx mod created by the Fly-by-Wire team, and it literally takes a default, very bare bones aircraft and turns it into, I would call this study level simulation quality. I mean, just so many of the upper panel features and buttons that are not available in the default version. Almost all of these that you sit here and try to manipulate are unavailable in the default version, that are all active and functional and have an impact on the overall performance of the aircraft once you're airborne, especially the MCDU. The functionality that's brought to the MCDU is just on par. So anyways, I just wanted to share that stuff with you guys real quick. Now, talking about the tools that I use, let me get into that. So obviously the first one here is Simbrief. We went over it previously, but if you guys have never used it, it's a really handy system. It's completely free. You don't have to pay for the subscription to Simbrief, but there is a payware portion of this, which I'll explain to you guys in just a minute. So Simbrief allows you to create a flight plan based on a specific type of aircraft, and it's got a ton of different aircraft to pick from. These are all the different aircraft that are currently available. All your big jets and things are pretty much in here. And if not, you can still, I've used it for general aviation when I'm doing IFR planning. At that point, I don't care about the aircraft, I care about the waypoints. But you basically can create an airline code. None of these are required. Okay, but you put in your destination or your departure and your arrival. Pick your airframe if you want to use an airframe. There's a specific profile for the A320 by Fly-by-Wire, the A320nx mod. I'll have a link for this down in the description below. It's a very large link. I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do about that. But if you want to have the A320nx profile added to your Simbrief, just simply make sure you have your Simbrief open and click on the link down in the description below, and it asks you if you want to add it to your library. And then when you come to aircraft type, you just select it here. Okay? Excuse me. And then from here, you can just fill out the different fields down below and create a flight plan. As you can see, here's the route that we are destined to travel based on the information I put in here. All right, so that'd be the first big tool that I use. The next tool that I use very heavily is Navigraph. Navigraph is a subscription base. It is a paid for subscription that I highly recommend it. Of all the different things that you can pay for and have subscriptions to, if you're going to be serious about flying IFR or even VFR, I highly recommend Navigraph because it adds a lot. First thing it does that's really important to us is, again, going back to Simbrief for a second. With the Navigraph subscription, you get the latest AirAC data. AirAC, for those of you guys who don't know what the AirAC data is the different routes that the airliners fly or anyone flies when they're using IFR to get from point A to point B. They're very specific routes that do change over time based on new routes opening up and things like that. It creates a live connection to the sim, so you can actually see your aircraft's location. For example, if we were to come here and find our KTUS here, taxi, airport information gates. Okay, so with SimLink started, now you can see that this is my aircraft's location over at Tucson International Airport. It gives you access to the charts, the approach charts, the star charts, you name it, and then allows you, as you saw, to be able to create a favorite. So it's extremely handy when flying IFR. I'm not going to take the time to break down every little thing that it offers, but it gives you a real-world pilot experience, and you can learn a lot from using it. The other thing, like I said, is it updates that AirAC data, and I think it's like $10 a month, maybe less. I can't remember exactly what it is. I know it's negligible in comparison to the features that it offers. I highly recommend it for both VFR and IFR pilots, even just for taxiing. You will move around as you get your taxi instructions, which makes it really nice if you're practicing, especially if you're working with ATC or something like that. So anyway, Navigraph would absolutely be the next tool that I would recommend. Now, the next tool that I've just recently started using that I'm really enjoying, and I've been talking with the developer, and he's got some really awesome plans for it. I'm even going to be collaborating with him on a couple of things, so hopefully those updates will be soon to come. But it's called Pushback Recorder, and it's just like any of the other pushback services, which any of them are better than the default. Okay, the default pushback in Microsoft Flight Simulator is terrible in my opinion. But it gives you the option to either manually push it back, in which case you use your arrows just like you do in most of the others, and steer the aircraft where you want it. But this offers another method that I find to be really awesome, and that's the ability to record a pushback, have it pre-planned. Now, someone pointed out in one of my previous comments on it, or in my previous video on this, is that, yeah, it's kind of redundant in the aspect that, yeah, you need to pre-record it and then start your flight over and do it again. But if you're flying out of a lot of the similar locations like I do, I tend to fly a lot of the same places, and it's just out of enjoyment. I like flying out of, for example, I like flying out of my hometown here in Tucson. That's why most of my videos start here. I don't know, I just do. This is where I would fly out of. So it's fun for me. Anyway, it increases the immersion, okay? Because what you can do is you can record it. Then when you're actually ready, to do your flight, you restart your aircraft, you restart you restart your scenario, and the next time when you're ready for pushback, you just tell it which pushback you want to do, and when you're ready, you hit one button, it toggles it, and you can be in the aircraft, starting your engines, doing your cool camera views, whatever it may be, while the pushback is proceeding the way you want. Now, something that's in the works is he's going to be working on some templates to try of bridge the gap between better pushback that we saw in X-Plane 11 and Microsoft Flight Simulator. I don't know that we have all the features necessary in order to create something like better pushback, but he's going to try to get as close to it as we can. So there's a couple of different methods that we can do here. So first I'm going to show you guys how a recorded pushback works. So I'm not going to worry about starting the aircraft in this, but one thing that I do want to do is release the parking brake, obviously. And then if we go back out to the external view, let's get into a view. I'm going to use the external view actually for this. That will be easier to manage this. Okay, let's zoom in a bit. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to tell it to record a pushback. I don't remember exactly which gate I'm on today, but it will demonstrate. And I created this folder inside the installation folder. It has its own installer. And it's KTUS, and I'm just going to call this, demo for today's purposes. All right, and now recording pushback is ready. So now it's just going to sit there until we toggle it. So I'm going to go ahead and toggle the pushback. And I can do that with the down arrow as well. You can see the tug rolling in. Go ahead and speed time up a little bit. Take it back to normal time. And from here, you can either move this off screen, or you can keep it on there, but I can just use the arrow keys. So if I want to tug true straight, just hit the up arrow, and then I can do left or right. And left to right is determined for this app based on your field of view from the front of the aircraft. And notice he straightens out after a few. But if you hold the left key down, he'll keep turning and turning and turning. And from here, I'm just going to hit toggle pushback again. So that stops the pushback. Okay. And now I'll show you guys what happens when you want to fly out of there again. Okay, so now if you want to do it again, just release your parking brake. And again, this can be done at any point. You know, obviously not until you're ready to actually roll. Launch our pushback recorder. Right off the bat, what method we're going to use? We're going to use the auto pushback feature. Save pushbacks, KTUS. Click our demo that we just did. When ready, obviously, toggle the pushback. You can, again, speed time up a bit. And then from here, you could be in the seat, starting your engines, etc. etc. You could be using your custom views. And boom. Come back up front. You can see the tugs pulling away. You set your parking brake. Now, I was not perfectly straight on the last one when I did that. You guys saw that. And one thing that the developer did say, and you can sort of plan for this, and I haven't tried messing around with it, and this is hopefully something that will get resolved, but on the longer pushbacks, there seems to be a, as you can see here, deviation from where you actually saved it to where it ends up, like we were on the line. So, but you can compensate for that if you really want to play around with it. But either way, that's still far better than having to sit there and control it. So anyway, just wanted to sort of walk you guys through a little quick crash course of the things that I use with the A320 and address a few of the questions that keep coming up repeatedly. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Stand by for new releases for the A32NX guide. As well as the TBM 930 guide is now in full production. I am working on it a little bit every single day so far. So it's coming along nicely, and I'm hoping to have that released within the next week or two, at least the first release. But again, we'll see how things go. I'm still learning things about it, so it takes a little bit of time. But there's also a G1000 guide available for purchase if you guys are interested in that as well. And other than that, I hope you guys have a wonderful week, and I'll see you guys in the next one.